a lot of people know about the situation in Los Angeles, California, the wildfires going on right now. At the point of our recording, it's been estimated at least 24 people have been killed, and 40,000 acres in the greater Los Angeles area have been just completely decimated.
Yeah, it's unreal. It's like out of a movie.
Yeah, so just a couple things that, and this is not the main focus of this, but a couple of entertainment things this kind of affects. The Oscar nominations were delayed for a second time due to this. Fallout Season 2 has been delayed.
Because of the fires?
Yes.
Okay.
A lot of the problems going on right now is like lack of power.
Oh,
like power being shut down, internet being shut down, that sort of thing. The Oscars are still planning to go forward on the 2nd of March. And I think it was, you had posted something on our Facebook page about, I think it was Rosanna Arquette.
Yeah.
That had suggested doing it like a, kind of like a Jerry Lewis, like telethon kind of thing. Yeah, and like trying to raise money for it, which I think would be a great idea.
Yeah. For relief.
Yeah. Of course, there's no shortage of, GoFundMe's out there. There's no shortage of donations you can do for this crisis right now. But we did, in kind of researching this, we had listened to the Robservations podcast, which you probably know. First time I've listened to the podcast, so you probably know more about it than I do. I'm a huge
fan of his. Yeah, I've been following him for a while, and I've shared some stuff to see about him. He's a big Trekkie.
Yeah. We'll put a link in the description for the podcast itself. I highly recommend anybody going out there and checking it out, just because of how much information he has on it personally. There's a lot of mom and pop stores that have been completely just lost. Another point he made that I thought was really good was that it's not just like Hollywood or Tinseltown that's being affected by this. California has a lot of like tech, aerospace, manufacturing, agriculture, stuff like that. So there's a lot of effects to this country going on right now because of this.
For sure.
One thing he said is that 6 months out of the year are dry with no rain whatsoever. So it's kind of like they have a dry season and a rainy season. That's about it for California. I've never lived there, so...
I've never been there.
Yeah. Well, I've been there a few times through the military and stuff like that, but the problem is that there's no... We think of like rain here in Iowa. There's shade from the trees and stuff like that. It keeps the ground wet for a while. There's no shade trees, anything like that, so when it's done raining, it dries up. It evaporates super quick.
Yep. And the brush grows a lot too, right?
Yeah. So,
which is flammable, pretty much. I think
one thing that he had noted was it's so hot. There's like 70-mile-an-hour winds out there right now. It's so hot that water sprayed from a hose is being blown and evaporated by the wind before it even has a chance to land on anything.
That's crazy.
So that's that's just devastating to think about. It's like it's to fires what blizzards are to snow,
right?
Basically,
it's just crazy. Like we're 2025, and you think they would be more advanced technology to put out a fire. Like as a kid, you think liquid nitrogen.
I wish I knew what was going on with the infrastructure, and I can't watch the news because you hear a million conflicting reports, and it's probably none of it's true.
Right. A lot of falsehoods.
But there's got to be an infrastructure solution somehow.
Well, and the thing that the fire department too is experiencing, it's not a lack of water.
Right.
The power that they've had to shut down helps the water pressure.
Yep.
So if you're it's like trying to combat a campfire with a squirt gun.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And they have 100 engines down supposedly because of a lack of mechanics, because of budget cuts and 100 engines. I mean, just that's
crazy.
Yeah.
It's just there's a lot of resources that they need. We mentioned, donations are available, everything like that. If you are, I'm going to do a kind of a shameless plug here, but if you are in Iowa, which we're recording this in, there are several locations of Lutheran Church of Hope around the state. They are taking donations that are directly benefiting families and those affected by the wildfires. They have boxes at their location. The donations go straight to Convoy Hope, I think it is.
Sounds right.
It goes straight to those affected. It doesn't go. No money goes to the church, anything like that. So, if you're local, you feel if you feel like you can give without guilt or putting yourself in a financial bind or anything like that, I encourage you to do so. Right. The one thing I wanted to bring up on this, have you guys seen the movie Lakeview Terrace with Samuel L. Jackson?
Yeah. Long time ago.
So he talks about in the podcast, one of the guys he knew that was spent all day hosing down his roof and stuff like that. And there's a scene in Lakeview Terrace where he's doing that, and I never really got like,
why?
Okay, if there's a wildfire coming, why would you spend time doing that? It's because of the embers from the fire are the first things to reach.
Oh, sure. Yep.
To reach areas versus like the actual flames and stuff like that. And, a lot of people do that, like wet their roofs down, their decks, stuff like that, because one ember can just...
That's crazy.
Yeah, spark it all.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people who fought real hard to keep their homes, and the ones that have been able to, they're like the only house left in the neighborhood. So you definitely have survivor's guilt. Either way, I think in that situation, and I know I heard Dennis Quaid and some other celebrity, they were trying to get booked into a hotel, and it was like, full.
Yeah.
It's nuts. And then I don't know if you heard, but he was getting interviewed as he was trying to evacuate. Oh,
jeez.
So he blew up,
oh, man.
But it's just a shit show. And you have it on here, the blame game, the crisis. It's because you've heard about people who aren't even in the state saying, oh, they don't have enough water, blah, 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 blah. Not saying that the politicians in charge have, cut back. Well, they shouldn't have, but it's calm the fuck down, people. Everyone wants a soundbite.
Yeah, the thing that makes me aggravated about it is hearing them make it into a political issue or a hot button topic like climate change, which obviously is affecting it because the rainy season is coming later than it did, 10 years ago or whatever. But yeah, I mean, everyone, whenever there's a crisis, you always want to
and you got
find somebody to blame for it, and it's just
and you got people saying oh, I don't care. They're all rich. I don't care. They're fine. They'll be fine. It's not necessarily
well,
it's expensive to live there. You have to have agents, all this stuff. It all adds up. And within these neighborhoods, you have regular people,
Exactly.
Yeah. Who've probably been there for generations. That's maybe how they're there. And
so many people, someone might be on a TV show for 1 or 2 years, and then, the public assumes that they're just massively rich.
Right.
Yeah. That's not the case.
Exactly. Especially with streaming, because they don't get any residuals from that. They don't get anything. So, I mean...
you've got your upper tier, of course.
Of course, yeah.
But I'd say 80%, 90% of these actors are not upper tier income actors.
That's
they're
what I've
working
learned over
actors.
the years, because I used to think everyone was rich. And I think for a lot of people to assume that. But
you think, and I will say this, a large part of that is probably because of Hollywood.
Yeah. Of
How many shows have you seen based in Southern California where it just looks like a paradise where everyone's rich?
Right.
But I would highly recommend checking out the Observations podcast if you want more insight on it, and insight that's not biased one way or another, whether it be politically or whatever the case may be. But
for sure,
it's been devastating for sure, and anything you can do to help would be encouraged.
Just try to have a bigger heart when it comes to these. I mean, I know it's easily to put celebrities aside, but it's they're people too, and they struggle just as much as we do. Some of them, not all of them, but some of them are like that. And
and he had mentioned too about Waco, or he talked about somebody that was involved in Waco or something or part of that whole thing. And I know, just from my childhood memory of that, people bringing in, buckets of water by the chopper full and dumping it on the fires and stuff like that. They can't even do that with this because the heat and the wind and everything like that just totally wrecks the machinery on it. So it's, it's not something that can just be a quick fix, which is just devastating to think about.
I think one plane got grounded because a drone hit it. It's our technology is great, but man, it can really get in the way. I mean, just I was talking about falsehoods, AI technology. There's some celebs have shared, the other day, they shared the Hollywood site on fire, and then everyone picks that up and thinks that's happening, and it wasn't even close, to the sign. And it's God, you got to do your research.
I mean,
sadly, you do.
It is devastating. I mean, it's something you hear people talk about no matter where you go. I hear people talking about it when I go to the convenience store to work.
It's scary.
I mean,
it's scary.
It is scary.
Yeah, I, my heart goes out to everyone there because it's even if you're not a victim of the fires, you're inhaling all that shit, and that's like 9/11. All the
not only that, but you think of the
asbestos. Yeah.
You think of the wildfires they've had before.
Yeah,
we feel the effects of that here in Iowa
that's
too.
True. Yep.
With like the air quality and stuff like that. I mean we've experienced that from fires in Canada
most recently.
Yeah, which is like
we have a family cabin up north, and for the first time ever in my lifetime, especially, this was like 2-3 years ago. It smelled like a campfire. It was a nice smell, but after a while, like okay, and you never saw really the sky. It was just smoky.
We had the haze
time.
Here.
It was wild.
Visible,
Yeah. It was just wild, and you've seen clips of people in that area, Los Angeles, and so on. It's like they're literally driving next to hell. It looks like a hellscape.
Yeah,
it's nuts.
It does, and another thing too is you think about like their infrastructure and things like that. Like they can't put power line. We have power lines that are underground and stuff like that because of like tornadoes and stuff in the Midwest.
Sure.
They can't do that underground because they're on a fault line.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So it's, there's not like the main point I want to get to, there's not like a dome over California that's just going to keep it contained there. We're going to feel the effects of it all across the country and stuff like that.
Nature has a lot of control over what's happening versus whatever they could have done. Not saying that they're not at fault. I think they could have had a better plan for sure.
It's unfortunately with California, just the way the climate is there, it's a losing battle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like they try to plan to stay ahead of it, both like the rainy season moving back and back and back. It's like they rely on that.
Especially the southern half of California. I mean, northern California.
Yeah.
And they get snow in Tahoe. I mean, it's a different ball game. That's a huge state.
Yeah.
But yeah, Southern California is a desert. I saw like a picture of 1920 before it was all built up and stuff. And, it was just.
Yeah. Not to say it was quite accurate, but I think it was called, was it Babylon? The movie came out a few years ago. Had, Harley Quinn, who played her?
Margot Robbie?
Yes, thank you. Basically, it was the beginning of Hollywood. It was from the silent movie era.
Yeah.
And so, there was like nothing around them. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they had to Hollywood that to make it work. But it gave you the sense like, wow, nothing was here yet. It really wasn't.
Exactly.
It was,
Hang on, I'm typing today's
fine.
date. First man ever to forget Margot Robbie's name. Okay, cool. I got it. Thanks.
There's a laugh.
Here.
Or a boo, maybe.
Hey, boo. Yeah, right.
Boo,
Boo, Josh.
How could I?
Yeah.